At exactly 6:02 a.m., my front door began to rattle like it was being attacked by a storm. At first, I thought it was the wind. March mornings in Oak Ridge were known for that. But then the pounding came again, louder, angrier. Not the knock of a neighbor, not an accident, this was deliberate. "Eleanor," a woman screamed from outside. "Open this door right now." I recognized that voice instantly. Lydia, my daughter-in-law. I stood frozen in my hallway, barefoot on the cold wooden floor, staring at the door I had lived behind for nearly 4 decades. My heart wasn't racing the way you'd expect. It was strangely calm, too calm, like something inside me had already decided how this would end. The locks had been changed the night before, every single one of them. The pounding turned violent. "I know you're in there," another voice shouted, deeper, hoarse, familiar in a way that hurt worse than fear ever could. "Mom, don't do this." "Open the door." Daniel, my son, my only child. I stepped closer to the peephole and looked out. Daniel stood on the porch in a wrinkled jacket, his eyes red and swollen, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles twitching. In his hands was something that made my stomach drop. A sledgehammer. Lydia stood beside him, arms crossed, lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't scared. She was impatient, like someone who believed the house already belonged to her. "If you don't open it," Daniel yelled, lifting the hammer slightly, "I'm coming in anyway." For a moment the world tilted. This was the same boy I had rocked to sleep during thunderstorms. The child who used to hide behind my legs when his father raised his voice. The teenager who cried in my kitchen when his first girlfriend left him. And now he was threatening to break down my door. My knees weakened, but I didn't move. Behind me, a calm voice spoke. "Let him be." I turned sharply. Arthur Hale stood at the end of the hallway, immaculate in his gray suit, leather briefcase in hand. He had entered through the back door exactly as planned, early, quiet, unseen. "I'll handle this," he said evenly. "How did you?" My voice barely worked. "You left the back door unlocked for me last night," he replied. "You did exactly what you needed to do." The pounding resumed. "Eleanor," Lydia screeched, "you don't get to shut us out like this. This house is ours too." Arthur stepped beside me, his presence grounding solid. "It's time," he said. "Open the door." My hand hovered over the deadbolt. 3 months ago I would have apologized, I would have begged, I would have cried and unlocked the door, desperate not to lose my family. But the woman standing there now wasn't that Eleanor. I unlocked it. The door swung open slowly. Daniel raised the hammer instinctively, then froze. Arthur Hale stood in front of him. The sledgehammer slipped from Daniel's fingers and hit the porch with a dull, useless thud. Lydia's face drained of color. They knew who he was. "Good morning," Arthur said calmly. "Daniel Brooks, Lydia Brooks, I regret to inform you that you no longer have legal permission to enter this property." Lydia exploded. "Who the hell do you think you are? We live here." Arthur opened his briefcase. Papers rustled in the early morning silence. "As of 11:47 p.m. last night," he said, "this property was transferred into an irrevocable trust under the sole authority of Mrs. Eleanor Brooks." Daniel stared at me, disbelief cracking his voice. "Mom, what did you do?" I met his eyes. "What I should have done from the beginning," I said quietly. "I protected myself." Lydia laughed, high-pitched, hysterical. "Protected yourself from what? From your own family. Without us, you'd be alone in this house, waiting to die." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, but permanently. "You stopped being my family," I said, "the moment you decided I was disposable." Arthur closed his briefcase with a soft click. "You have 48 hours to vacate the premises." Daniel staggered back like he'd been struck. But before he could speak again, before Lydia could scream another lie, Arthur leaned closer to them and added one final sentence. Quiet, precise, devastating. "And if you're wondering how we know everything, it's because your voices were recorded." Daniel's face collapsed. Lydia's smile vanished. And as I stood there, watching the truth finally corner them, I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. This wasn't the beginning of the fight. This was the end of my silence. And the story of how my own son tried to erase me had only just begun. 3 months earlier, I would have opened that door without hesitation. Back then, I was still the kind of mother who believed love could fix anything. It's a Tuesday, December 12th. I remember because I had gone to the farmer's market early that morning to buy poinsettias for the holidays. Henry loved them. Red always made him smile. I placed them carefully on the passenger seat of my car, humming to myself, pretending the house didn't feel so empty without him. At 11:04 a.m. my phone rang. "Mom." Daniel's voice sounded wrong, flat, strained. "What happened?" I asked immediately. "Are you okay? I need to talk to you." "Can I come over?" he said. "It's urgent." A mother's mind goes to dark places when her child says that word. "Of course," I said. "Do you want me to make lunch?" No, just please be home. He hung up before I could ask more. When Daniel arrived that afternoon, he wasn't alone. Lydia stepped in behind him, perfectly dressed, lips painted, smile already in place. Then came my grandchildren, Noah and Ellie, dragging overstuffed backpacks that looked far too heavy for a simple visit. Hi, Grandma, Lydia said brightly. Sorry we didn't call ahead. Oh, don't worry, I replied. Come in, you must be freezing. The kids ran straight for the backyard. I noticed then how practiced everything felt, like a scene already rehearsed. Daniel sat on the sofa and rubbed his face the way he used to when he was overwhelmed as a boy. We lost the apartment, he said finally. The words fell hard. Lost it, I repeated. How? We fell behind on the mortgage, 3 months. The bank foreclosed. Lydia took his hand and squeezed it gently. We didn't want to worry you, she said softly. You've already done so much. My chest tightened. My son homeless. Oh, sweetheart, I said, moving closer. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I could have helped. Daniel looked at me then, eyes wet. Mom, we need a favor. Anything. Can we stay here, just temporarily, 2 or 3 months while I find stable work? My house had 4 bedrooms. Since Henry died, most of them sat unused, silent, too silent. Yes, I said immediately. Of course you can stay. Lydia hugged me tightly, too tightly. She smelled expensive, far too expensive for someone who had supposedly lost everything. Thank you, she whispered. You're saving us. That same day they started moving in, boxes, so many boxes. By evening, a rented truck was parked outside my house. All this? I asked, trying to sound lighthearted. We don't know how long we'll be here, Daniel said quickly. It's easier to bring everything. It made sense, or I convinced myself it did. The first week felt almost nice. I cooked for everyone. The kids did homework at my dining table. Daniel left early looking for work. Lydia stayed home, reorganizing. That's when the changes began. Henry's armchair, the one he read in every Sunday afternoon, was moved into the garage. It's old and ugly, Lydia said casually. It clutters the living room. She replaced my bathroom towels, the ones my mother had embroidered, with new gray ones. Modern is better, she said. She started cooking food I didn't recognize, heavy with spices that burned my tongue. When I cooked traditional meals, she sighed. So much fat isn't healthy at your age, Aliner. 2 weeks in, I came downstairs and froze. The dining room curtains were gone. I took them down, Lydia said without looking up from her blender. They blocked the light. Had sewn those curtains myself, it took me weeks. But I liked them, I said quietly. They were outdated, she replied. It was time for a change. Daniel walked in then, kissed her cheek and smiled at me. Looks better, right, Mom? I swallowed my protest. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing Henry's voice in my head. You're too kind, Ellie. One day someone will use that against you. I told myself I was imagining things. They were family. Family wouldn't erase me piece by piece. But as I drifted into uneasy sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't welcomed guests into my home. I had handed them the keys to my life, and they were already rearranging it without asking. What I didn't know yet was that the curtains were nothing, because next, Lydia would start throwing away something far more valuable than fabric. The 3rd week was when I realized something was very wrong. Lydia stopped pretending she was a guest. She walked through my house like an inspector, opening cabinets, rearranging shelves, commenting on furniture as if she were planning a sale instead of living under my roof. One morning, she entered my bedroom without knocking. I was folding laundry when I looked up and saw her standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room. We need to talk about this space, she said. This is space, I repeated. She stepped inside, touching my dresser, my mirror, the framed wedding photo of Henry and me. It's heavy, she said. So much stuff, it's not healthy for you to be surrounded by all this. All of what? I asked. My life, she sat on my bed as if it belonged to her. You live in the past, Aliner. Your husband has been gone for years. You need to let go. The words hit harder than I expected. I won't let go of Henry, I said quietly. He was my husband for 42 years. I'm not asking you to forget him, she replied, voice sugary. Just to make room for the present. For us, the next day I came home from church and stopped dead in my tracks. The living room looked empty. The photographs were gone. Every framed picture of Henry, our honeymoon, our anniversaries, him holding Daniel as a baby, had vanished. In their place sat scented candles and an artificial plant. Where are Henry's photos? I asked, my voice shaking. I put them in a box in your closet, Lydia said. They'll be safer there. I don't want them safe, I said. I want them visible. She sighed the way someone sighs at a stubborn child. You can't turn the house into a shrine. I went to my closet and opened the box. Not all the photos were there. One was missing. The silver-framed photo of Henry carrying me on the beach in Hawaii, waves around our feet, both of us laughing like the world was new. Lydia, I called, one is missing. Oh, that one, she said casually. The frame broke, I threw it out. You threw it out. Something inside my chest cracked, not loudly but deeply. That night I waited for Daniel. When he came home, I asked him to sit. She's throwing away your father's things, I said. She's changing everything, I don't recognize my own home. Daniel didn't look at me, he stared at his phone. Mom, he sighed, Lydia is trying to help, this place was outdated. It's my house, I said, and I liked it. Well, maybe someone needed to show you how to move forward. His words sliced clean through me. Moving forward doesn't mean erasing your father. He stood up, you cling too much to the past. Dad's been gone 5 years, it's time. That night I cried silently in a living room that no longer felt like mine. A week later, Lydia announced she'd hired a deep cleaning service. I clean my own house, I said. With all due respect, she smiled, you clean the old-fashioned way. 3 cleaners arrived the next day. Lydia directed them like a commander. Those boxes in the garage trash. That cabinet, take it out. I ran forward. That cabinet belonged to my grandmother. It's full of bugs, Lydia snapped. Be practical. I didn't notice what else they took. 2 days later I went to the garage. Henry's vinyl collection was gone, 30 years of jazz records. Lydia, I whispered. Where are the records? Oh, those, she said. The cleaners threw them away, they were scratched. I sank to the concrete floor. They weren't scratched, I said. They were memories. She leaned against the doorframe. They were just things. That night I went to my neighbor Ruth's house. She listened quietly, then said, she's erasing you. No, I whispered, she's family. That's what makes her dangerous. The next day Lydia painted the living room without asking. The soft peach Henry and I had chosen together was now a cold, dark gray. Daniel applauded. Looks modern. It looks like I don't live here anymore, I said. You're being dramatic, Lydia replied. That night, lying in bed, I finally understood the truth. They weren't staying temporarily. They were claiming territory. And I was shrinking room by room, memory by memory, until there would be nothing left of me to fight back. But what came next wasn't about walls or furniture, it was about money. And when I discovered what Lydia had done behind my back, I realized she wasn't just manipulative. She was a thief. The first thing Lydia stole wasn't money, it was permission. She acted as if everything in my house was already hers, and somehow, without realizing it, I had allowed that illusion to grow. The real theft revealed itself on January 18th. I remember the date clearly because it would have been Henry's birthday. I always placed fresh flowers beside his photograph on that day, but his photograph was no longer in the living room. It was hidden in a box, sealed away like something shameful. I went into the kitchen to make tea. Lydia was seated at the dining table with her laptop open, speaking softly on the phone. Yes, it's authentic, she said. Vintage, fine china, hand-painted, 24-karat gold detailing. My stomach tightened, I stepped closer. No, it's not stolen, she continued. It's from my family. I saw the screen. Photographs of my china set, the one Henry gave me for our 30th anniversary. 12 plates, 12 cups, gold-rimmed, cherry blossoms painted by hand. I had never used them. Too precious. Lydia, I whispered. What are you doing? She looked up calmly, too calmly. I'm selling the china, selling. My china, my voice shook. Henry gave that to me. Grandma, nobody uses it, she said lightly. And we need the money. Take it down now. She closed the laptop with an irritated sigh. You're being unreasonable. This isn't yours to sell. We're family, she said sharply. What's yours is ours. The words chilled me. Daniel walked in moments later. What's going on? He asked. Your mother doesn't want us to sell the china, Lydia said, instantly fragile. She'd rather we struggle. They're not just plates, I said. They're your father's gift. Daniel rubbed his face. Mom, seriously, sell it, Lydia whispered dramatically. Or we'll pack and leave, the kids will suffer. My chest constricted. 2 hours later I broke. Fine, I whispered. Sell it. Daniel hugged me. I knew you'd understand. That night the cabinet was empty. The next day Lydia returned with shopping bags, designer clothes, new shoes. Did you sell the china? I asked. Yes, she said cheerfully. We paid some bills. And the clothes? I deserve something nice, she replied. Something inside me went numb. 2 weeks later Lydia began acting sick, dizzy, pale, weak. I don't want to worry anyone, she said dramatically. But when Ellie asked, Mom, are you sick? Lydia's eyes filled with tears. No insurance, she whispered. Doctors are expensive. I'll pay, I said instantly. The clinic sounded prestigious. Private, urgent, she asked me to wait outside during the appointment. When she came out, she was crying. They need tests, she whispered. MRIs, biopsies. How much? I asked. $15,000. I sold stock that afternoon, handed her the money. 2 weeks later, Ruth stopped me at the mall. I saw your daughter-in-law at Hillside, she said. Hillside? I frowned. The cosmetic surgery clinic. She got a nose job. Very nice work. My world tilted. That night I confronted Lydia. So what if I did? She snapped. I needed it. It was my money. You gave it to me, Daniel backed her. It doesn't matter what it was used for, he said. You helped her. I stayed silent. But something had changed. Because that night, I heard a conversation that shattered what little hope I had left. And in the darkness of my kitchen, I learned exactly what they planned to do with me. And once I heard it, there was no going back. It was 2:37 in the morning when I woke up thirsty. That sharp, dry feeling in your throat that won't let you fall back asleep no matter how hard you try. I glanced at the clock beside my bed, sighed, and slipped on my robe. I didn't turn on the lights. I knew every step of this house by heart, or at least I used to. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard voices. Daniel's voice, Lydia's voice. They were coming from the back patio. Something told me not to announce myself, not to cough, not to move too fast. I stayed in the shadows near the kitchen doorway, the cool wall against my back, barely breathing. And if she says no? Daniel asked. He sounded nervous. She won't, Lydia replied calmly, too calmly. She needs us. She's old, lonely, and scared of being alone in that big house. My stomach twisted. I don't know, Daniel said. She's stubborn sometimes. Lydia laughed softly. Stubborn people break the easiest. You just have to wear them down. I heard the flick of a lighter. Lydia smoked when she thought I wasn't around. A few more months, she continued. We convince her it's for her own safety. Falls, medical emergencies, paperwork complications. We make her think signing the house over to you is responsible. My heart began pounding so loudly I feared they'd hear it. And then what? Daniel asked. There was a pause. Then we move her into a facility, Lydia said. Nothing fancy. One of those places near the industrial park. 4,000 a month. A nursing home, a cheap one. But she's my mother, Daniel muttered. She's lived her life, Lydia replied coldly. She had her marriage, her memories. What about us? Are we supposed to rent forever while she sits alone in a 4-bedroom house? Silence. Then Daniel spoke again. The house is worth, what, 800,000? At least, Lydia said. Enough for the downtown condo we want. Park View. 3 bedrooms. And she'll be taken care of, Daniel said weakly. Yes, Lydia said sharply. She'll have food, a bed, nurses. What more does she need at her age? My vision blurred. She won't suspect anything, Lydia continued. We've already taken her things, her money, changed her house, and she did nothing. I felt my knees tremble. She's weak, Daniel, and weak people always lose. Then my son spoke words that ended something inside me forever. You're right, he said. My mom has already lived enough. We deserve this house. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stop a sound from escaping. They laughed quietly together, partners, accomplices. I crept back upstairs, every step a battle. I closed my bedroom door and sat on the edge of my bed, shaking. I looked at the one remaining photo of Henry on my nightstand. What do? I whispered. And then I remembered something Henry had said to me in the hospital before he died. Don't let them turn you into a victim. Even if it's your own blood. I stood up, went to my closet. Behind the boxes Lydia had shoved aside was my small safe. I opened it. Inside were my house deeds and a business card. Arthur Hale, attorney at law, Henry's lawyer, his friend. I stared at the card for a long time. That night the Alina who believed love was enough died. In her place, someone else was born, someone quiet, someone patient, someone dangerous. Because I wasn't going to fight them with tears. I was going to fight them with preparation. And they had no idea what was coming. Because while they slept peacefully upstairs, certain they had already won, I made a decision that would destroy their entire plan. The next morning I served breakfast like nothing had happened. Eggs, toast, fresh coffee. Lydia eyed me carefully as if she were waiting for a crack for tears, anger, accusations. Daniel barely looked at me. Sleep well? Lydia asked, sweet as honey. Perfectly, I replied, and meant something very different than she thought. That day I called Arthur Hale from the grocery store parking lot. He answered on the second ring. Eleanor, he said, surprise warming his voice. It's been a long time. I need help, I said. Quiet help. There was a pause. Are you safe? He asked. For now. Come by tomorrow morning, he said. Alone. The weeks that followed were a performance. I smiled. I agreed. I apologized. When Lydia suggested downsizing my wardrobe, I nodded. When Daniel mentioned assisted living, just as an option, I listened silently. I let Lydia handle the mail. I let Daniel access my calendar. I let them believe I was fading. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Every bank withdrawal, every missing item, every overheard comment. Arthur was methodical. Don't confront, he said. Let them expose themselves. We moved my assets piece by piece. The trust was established under a neutral name. My accounts were secured, a new will was drafted, I signed papers slowly, hands steady. They won't suspect a thing, Arthur said. At home, Lydia began pushing harder, she started calling me confused. She forgets things, she told Daniel loudly. I'm worried. She began helping with my medication. I stopped taking anything she gave me. One afternoon, I overheard Lydia on the phone. She's getting weaker, she whispered. We'll move her soon. That night, Daniel sat beside me. Mom, he said gently, we're worried about you living alone. I looked at him, really looked, the man who shared my blood. I'm not alone, I said. You will be, he replied quietly. Soon, a chill ran through me. Then came the doctor visit. Lydia insisted on attending. She answered questions before I could. She forgets names, Lydia said. She gets lost. I smiled politely. Arthur had warned me. This is the phase where they try to label you incompetent. At home, Lydia started packing my things. This room will be Noah's, she said cheerfully. She placed boxes by my bedroom door. I packed something of my own that night. My dignity. 2 days later, Arthur called. It's done, he said. The house is protected, the evidence is secured. When, I asked. When they make their final move. It came sooner than expected. Lydia served me tea that tasted bitter, too bitter. I didn't drink it. Minutes later, she frowned. You didn't finish your tea. I wasn't thirsty, I said. She stared too long. That night I slept with my bedroom locked. The next morning, Lydia announced, we've scheduled a tour of a care facility. No, I said calmly. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. You don't get to decide anymore, I looked at them both. I've decided plenty, I replied. And for the first time, Lydia looked uneasy, because something in my voice had changed. And they could feel it. They thought the trap was closing around me. I never realized they were already standing inside one of their own. The official-looking envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. Lydia held it like a trophy. Mail for you, she said sweetly, placing it on the table in front of me. Important. I recognized the logo instantly. County Services, my stomach tight, but I didn't let it show. Daniel hovered near the doorway, arms crossed, jaw stiff. The children were already at school. Lydia had planned this carefully. No witnesses, no distractions. I opened the letter slowly. It was a notice for a cognitive evaluation. Someone very concerned had reported that I might no longer be capable of managing my own affairs. Well, Lydia asked, this is for your own good. I folded the paper neatly and set it down. Who reported me? Daniel answered without meeting my eyes. We did. The honesty shocked me more than a lie would have. You told the state I'm incompetent, I asked. We told them you're struggling, Lydia corrected. There's a difference. There's a lie, I said calmly. Lydia's smile tightened. You forgot to turn off the stove last week. You turned it on, I replied. Daniel snapped his head toward her. What? She waved it off. She's confused. I stood up slowly. I've been confused before, I said, but I'm very clear today. They exchanged a look. That afternoon, a social worker arrived. Ms. Calder, mid-40s, kind eyes, clipboard held firmly. She asked me simple questions, date, address, names. I answered easily. Lydia interrupted constantly. She forgets at night. She wanders. She repeats stories. Ms. Calder raised a hand. Mrs. Brooks can answer for herself. I smiled. The evaluation ended without incident, but Lydia was furious. They'll be back, she hissed once the door closed. You embarrassed me. You accused me of losing my mind, I replied. I'd say we're even. That night, Daniel tried a different tactic. Guilt. Tearing this family apart, he said quietly in the living room. The kids feel the tension. The kids feel what you create, I replied. We gave up everything to move in here. No, I said, you moved in to take everything. His face hardened. You think you're smarter than us, he said, but you're alone, I nodded. I am, and for the first time that didn't scare me. The next day, Lydia escalated. She scheduled movers. Just reorganizing, she said lightly. Preparing for changes. I came home to find my bedroom half empty, my clothes boxed, my jewelry case missing. Where is it? I asked. In a safe place, Lydia replied, so you don't lose it, I called Arthur. It's time, I said. Good, he replied, because they just made a serious mistake. That evening, Lydia and Daniel sat me down. We found a facility, Lydia announced. Short-term, trial period. I'm not going, I said. Daniel's voice dropped. You don't have a choice. I looked at him, really looked. You forget, I said softly. This is still my house. Lydia laughed. Not for long, I stood. Tomorrow, I said, I'm going out alone. Lydia frowned. You shouldn't. I will. That night, I packed a small bag, documents, copies, proof. I slept peacefully for the first time in months, because the next morning wasn't about losing my freedom. It was about reclaiming it. And Lydia and Daniel had no idea that the knock they were waiting for, the one that would take me away, was already on its way. It's not for me. The knock came at 9:14 a.m., firm, controlled, official. Lydia stiffened instantly. Daniel glanced at me, suspicion flashing across his face. Did you call someone? I smiled faintly and stayed seated. Lydia rushed to the door, already rehearsing her concern. She opened it wide and froze. Two police officers stood on the porch. Behind them was Ms. Calder, the social worker, and behind her Arthur Hale. Good morning, Arthur said pleasantly. Sorry to arrive unannounced. Lydia's smile collapsed. What is this? An investigation, Ms. Calder replied calmly, and a welfare check. Daniel stepped forward. This is unnecessary. Actually, Arthur said, stepping inside, it's overdue. The officers entered. The house felt suddenly smaller, quieter. Ms. Calder turned to me. Mrs. Brooks, may we speak with you privately? I'd prefer to speak here, I said. With witnesses. Lydia's jaw tightened. Arthur handed Ms. Calder a folder. Documentation, he said. Financial exploitation, emotional abuse, coercion, false reporting. Ms. Calder opened it. Her expression changed with every page. Bank transfers, sales listings, medical receipts, audio transcripts. What's this? Daniel asked sharply. Evidence, Arthur replied, collected legally. One officer turned to Lydia. Ma'am, did you sell property belonging to Mrs. Brooks without her consent? Lydia scoffed. She agreed. Arthur slid forward a form. She was pressured. Here are messages proving manipulation. Ms. Calder looked up. You reported her cognitive decline. Yes, Lydia said quickly. She forgets. Here is a medical evaluation completed yesterday, Arthur interrupted. Independent, Mrs. Brooks is fully competent. Daniel's face drained of color. The second officer spoke. Mr. Brooks, we also have concerns regarding attempted involuntary placement. What? Daniel snapped. That's not illegal. It is, the officer replied evenly, when done through coercion and false statements. Lydia backed toward the kitchen. I was protecting my family, she said. No, I said calmly, you were stealing from it. Ms. Calder turned to me. Mrs. Brooks, do you feel safe in this home? I didn't hesitate. No, that word changed everything. The officers asked Daniel and Lydia to step outside. Lydia screamed. You planned this, she shouted at me. You set us up, I stood slowly. No, I said. You set yourselves up when you decided I was disposable. Daniel looked at me, eyes wild. Mom, please. I stopped being Mom the night you agreed to put me away. The officers escorted them onto the porch. Neighbors watched. Ruth stood across the street, arms folded, eyes fierce. Ms. Calder stayed behind. We'll arrange temporary housing for them, she said. And protection for you. Arthur leaned toward me. It's not over yet. I know, I replied. That afternoon, Lydia returned once. With movers, with entitlement, with rage, the officers stopped her at the curb. You're trespassing, one said. This is my house, she screamed. Arthur stepped forward. Actually, he said calmly, this house is held in trust. You have no legal claim. Daniel lowered his head. Lydia's voice dropped to a hiss. You think this is over? I met her gaze. For me, I said, it is. They left in silence. That night I walked through my house, touched the walls, opened windows, breathed freely, but peace didn't come. Because I knew Lydia, and I knew she wouldn't walk away quietly. And Arthur confirmed it with one sentence before he left. She's going to try something desperate. I nodded, because desperate people don't give up power, they try to take it by force. And I had a feeling the next time Lydia showed up, she wouldn't come with words. The house was quiet for 2 days. Too quiet. No angry messages, no threats, no dramatic apologies from Daniel. Lydia vanished completely, and that worried me more than her shouting ever had. Arthur called every evening. Change your routine, he warned. Lock everything, don't answer the door. I followed every instruction. Still, on the third night, sleep refused to come. At 1:18 a.m., I heard footsteps on the gravel outside. I sat upright in bed, then came a whisper. Daniel, do it now. My heart slammed against my ribs. I reached for my phone with shaking hands and opened the security app Arthur had insisted I install. The front camera feed appeared on my screen. Daniel stood on the porch. Lydia was beside him, and in Daniel's hands a sledgehammer. My breath caught. This is insane, Daniel whispered. You want your life back or not? Lydia hissed. She ruined us. Daniel lifted the hammer slightly. My hands moved on instinct. I pressed the emergency call button. The pounding came without warning. I shook violently. Mom, Daniel shouted. Open the door. I didn't move, I didn't speak. The second strike cracked the frame. Lydia screamed, break it down. I backed away from the bedroom door, heart racing, phone pressed to my ear. Police are on the way, the dispatcher said calmly. The hammer hit again. Wood splintered. I thought of Henry, of the life I had built. of how close I had come to losing everything, not just my home but myself. Daniel, I called out, voice steady despite the This is your last chance, walk away. There was a pause. I don't have a choice, he replied hoarsely. Yes, you do, I said, you always did. The next blow never landed. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Police, drop the weapon, Daniel froze. The hammer slipped from his hands and hit the porch with a dull clang, just like it had that morning weeks earlier. Lydia screamed. Don't you dare drop it. Two officers rushed forward. Daniel was restrained first. Lydia fought. She clawed, kicked, shrieked accusations. She stole our house, she yelled. She planned this, the officer cuffing her said quietly. Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted forced entry, harassment, and intimidation. As they led her past the door, she turned and locked eyes with me. This time there was no confidence in her gaze, only fury. You think this ends me, she spat. You'll regret this. I didn't answer, because I finally understood something. People like Lydia don't regret hurting others. They only regret losing. The officers escorted them away. The house fell silent again, but this silence was different. It was clean. Arthur arrived an hour later. You did exactly right, he said. I didn't want it to come to this, I replied. They did, he said simply. The next morning, Ruth brought me coffee. You're safe now, she said. I nodded, but deep down, I knew one thing remained. This wasn't just about safety, it was about closure. Because Lydia and Daniel still believed I had won by accident, they had no idea how complete their downfall was about to be, and Arthur confirmed it with his final words before leaving that afternoon. The court date is set, he said, and the evidence ensures this ends publicly. I looked at the repaired door, at the marks the hammer had left behind, at the house that had survived an invasion. So be it, I said, because the final chapter wasn't about fear, it was about justice. And when the courtroom doors opened, the truth would finally crush every lie they'd built their future on. The courtroom smelled like old wood and cold air. I arrived early, dressed carefully, not to impress anyone but to remind myself who I was. Eleanor Brooks, homeowner, mother, widow, survivor. Daniel sat at the defense table when I entered. He looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders slumped, hands shaking slightly. Lydia sat beside him, spine straight, chin lifted, eyes sharp. She wore confidence like armor, but it was cracked now. Arthur leaned toward me. You ready? I nodded. I've been ready for months. The judge entered. The case moved quickly, too quickly for Lydia's liking. Arthur presented the timeline: methodical, undeniable, financial exploitation, coercion, false medical claims, audio recordings played through the courtroom. Lydia's voice filled the space. She's weak. We'll move her into a facility. She won't suspect anything. Daniel buried his face in his hands. Lydia sat frozen. The judge looked up. Do you deny these statements, Mrs. Brooks? Lydia stood abruptly. They're taken out of context. Arthur rose calmly. Context doesn't change intent, Your Honor. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand slowly, steadily. I loved my son, I said. I trusted my daughter-in-law. I opened my home because I believed family protected each other. I paused. They didn't want to help me. They wanted to replace me. The courtroom was silent. I was erased piece by piece, I continued. My memories, my money, my dignity, until I was nothing more than an obstacle. Lydia laughed sharply. You're exaggerating. The judge raised a hand. Enough. I looked directly at Daniel. You could have stopped her, I said softly. Every step of the way, tears streamed down his face. I know, he whispered. The verdict came swiftly. A restraining order, restitution, mandatory counseling for Daniel. Charges against Lydia for financial abuse, attempted unlawful eviction, and intimidation. The judge's final words rang clear. This court finds that Mrs. Eleanor Brooks acted in defense of her rights and safety. Her property and autonomy are to be fully restored. I closed my eyes, not from relief, from release. Outside the courthouse, Lydia walked past me, escorted. This isn't over, she hissed. I smiled. It is for me. Daniel stopped. Mom, he said quietly. I don't expect forgiveness. That's good, because forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned. He watched as I walked away. That afternoon, I returned home. The new door gleamed in the sunlight. I rehung Henry's photographs myself, every single one. I placed the armchair back in the living room. The house felt warm again. Mine. Ruth brought over pie. Arthur raised a glass of iced tea. To boundaries, he said. To survival, Ruth added. I smiled. To knowing when to stop being silent. That night, I slept deeply. No footsteps. No whispers, no fear, just peace. And one final realization settled gently in my heart. I didn't lose my family. I reclaimed myself. Because sometimes the strongest thing a mother can do is stop sacrificing herself for people who would gladly destroy her.